Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to be here to share with you the story of my great friend, Patrick Asare. So when I showed up at the Tuck School of Business, I knew I was going to meet some interesting and different people. The trend happened to be if you were from another country, you were some diplomat or president or very wealthy person's kid. So when I met this guy from Ghana, I was like, all right, here's another guy who's probably like the Prince of Ghana. I don't know. Based on the currency or something. He was just a cool guy with a funny accent, and I'm from New Jersey. That's me too. So we had a lot in common right out of the gates. But I think it's an incredible story, really about in your life, no matter where you start, it's crazy what you can achieve. So when I think about computers, and we do these statistical models now that come out very quickly with billions of iterations. You put in the inputs, and if you put in Patrick's fact pattern where he started, and you hit the button, there is no computer that would have predicted that he would be here today with all of his great success, with his beautiful wife Patricia, his son Patrick. So Patrick, Patricia, Patrick, and then Jen. Jen's here too. Jen went to the College of New Jersey, which is the original name of Princeton, you might have heard of. But just a super impressive family. So we had a great podcast last night. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. It went 2.5 hours because the guy just kept pulling all this great information out of my friend Dennis Michael Lynch was very generous with his time. We had a great day at St. Edward's. Stuart Herstein organized an assembly for Patrick, and I think the kids really enjoyed it, and one of the teachers is teaching the book. So enough about me. Please give a warm Quail Valley welcome to Patrick Asare.
Awesome.
Through the streets of Accra, to Kumasi's embrace, our stories woven in Kente of time and grace. In every fell, a new memory begins. In the heart of Ghana where love never dims. Oh, we shall never forget the legacy we bear. From the shores of Cape Coast to the Volta we share. Our ancestors whisper in the breeze they dance. In Ghana numbers we seize the chance. Some call for us through the tales untold. In the echoes of our ancestors, our heritage unfolds. With every song, every prayer we revive. In Ghana numbers, our spirits strive. In the glow of the sunset, our stories we tell. Ghana numbers where our hearts dwell. Together we stand, in remembrance we bow. For the spirit of Ghana, forever endure.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It is quite surreal for this village boy to be standing in front of such a distinguished audience tonight, and you will see my story, and you would understand why I'm saying this is quite insane. And I'll begin by thanking a few people. My very good friend Mike Curley, who introduced my book to this distinguished club. Mike and I met in business school 2001, so we've known each other for 24 years, and we were steady group mates. And I credit Mike and a few close friends at Dartmouth for getting me through the program, because I doubled. I was by day a taxi driver, and a student by night. I had a young family. This guy over here, my son Patrick, was born right when I went to business school, and my wife was working there, and so we had one car, and I had to drive everyone. So that wasn't a very so Mike, thank you for getting me through Tuck. And I would like to thank Ms. Guthrie for all the beautiful and hard work you've done to put this amazing event together. And I'm going to forget some names, but I thank all of you for coming this evening. Just a quick recognition. My wife, everyone says she's the hero of the book. She didn't write it, but they say she's the hero. And so yeah, thank you for being a wonderful partner, wife, and mother to, and then Jennifer, Patrick. You've heard about them, and then Josiah is Patrick's friend from, they've grown up together in a little town called Wyomissing that no one has heard about, even in America. So Josiah happens to live in Orlando. He graduated college last year and lives in Orlando, so he wanted to come and join us tonight. So thank you for, yeah. So I wrote this book 2 years ago, and after I wrote it, I got into writing. I was just talking to a journalist, someone here. I'm so terrible with names, and so once you write, it's like you've been bitten by a bug, and so I've gone into writing quite a bit nowadays, and I write for my blog, and the one of the latest blogs I wrote, I titled it, "I wasn't supposed to leave my village, but I ended up meeting everyone in the world." I will get into that as we go along. The slides up. So the title of the book is The Boy from Bordua. Bordua is the name of the little village where I grew up. I was born there and I grew up there. And so the journey, the book talks about the journey from this little village to the Soviet Union and ultimately to America. And it's a summary of that journey and some of the lessons I learned along the way. So starting out in the village, I think the slides, let me see here. Can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, I can, oh, sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me. Okay. So just a brief sort of setup of the agenda. So we'll just go through. So this is a sort of a highlight of the journey. So I started out in this little country, Ghana, in West Africa. I'm sure most of you know about Ghana. So Ghana is in the middle, they're right along the equator. A couple of doors down is Nigeria, which is the large country in West Africa that most people know about. And then I grew up there and then left there to go to the Soviet Union in 1985, and then came to America. I lived in the Soviet Union for 6 years and then came to America in 1992, actually. So this is a map of Ghana. It's a small country with a bunch of administrative regions. But the village of Bordua, so that's this tiny picture here is what we call a neighborhood in Bordua. So this town, this little village wasn't on the Ghana map. So people, even in that small country, didn't know we existed. And that's how the place looked like. I mean, that little boy there is not me, but that's how we all walked around. And as you see the house there, that's called a house, and that's what we slept in. And so sleeping was an occupational hazard every night. I mean, you couldn't, you didn't know whether you were going to wake up. I mean, this thing could fall on you in a minute. So that was the kind of environment that we lived in. And I was born into a family with 14 children. My parents, everyone in this village, every adult in this village was illiterate. And so my parents were illiterate as well, and they made a mistake of having 14 children. I'm number 12 in that chain. And so you were talking about two illiterate people with there's no concept of job, actually. So people had little plots of land that they farmed, grew crops, and so yielded minimal, and so you didn't have enough to feed 14 children. So hunger was a constant presence, and So that's, and so we worked on farms. I mean, as a child, you were born to work on farm. You were born to help on farms. So that's what we did. And so you woke up in the morning. This was a place without plumbing, electricity. There was nothing. And so we woke up early in the morning, usually about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And then you took an aluminum bucket. It's a heavy bucket. And we didn't have water at home, so we trekked to a river, which was about a mile from where we lived. And you were walking through dense terrain, muddy terrain. And I was about 8 years old when I got drafted into this water carrying function. And so I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and carry this bucket, and I'll fetch the water and put it on my head. We carried it on our heads, and it was too heavy of a load for an 8-year-old, but nobody cared. and so you were walking with this water, and it was splashing all over the place. And we had to do this not once, 4 times in the morning before going to this elementary school that was in the place. So you did that, and then you did a bunch of chores in addition to that, and you went to school about 8 o'clock in the morning. So as you can see, this is not an environment, life there was like being on the Titanic. I mean, you was, just struggling to survive. And so, education was the last thing on anybody's mind. And so they had this little elementary school in this place where children went to, learn to, you basically learn the alphabet. And you learn to count from 1 to 10, and that was pretty much the education you were expected to get. And so, we talk about birth certificates and dates of birth in this country. It defines our lives. I mean, over there was no concept of a birth certificate or date of birth. So you were born, and no one knew how old you were. So as a kid, you were walking around, and this elementary school that most people go to are 6 years old, universal sort of milestone. You're walking around, and someone would just come up on you and say, hey, they have this thing called right arm to left ear test. And so some adult will walk up and say, hey, kid, put your right arm over your head and try to touch your left ear. And you did that, and if you were able to touch it, then I say you're good enough to start school. That's how I started school. So I am good enough to go to school. So school is not a building, right? It's a tree that is standing in the middle of this village, and they give you a stool. You're about 5 years old, 6 years old. They give you a stool, and you walk up to this place and you sit under the tree. And then there's an easel with a chalkboard on it, and there's a teacher standing there. And so you sit there, and you're being taught the alphabet. And then there are goats and chickens walking around, you. And for the longest time, I thought those goats and chickens were classmates of mine, right? Because they would stand, while the teacher was teaching, they would stand, and they just watch. And then at some point they got bored and they walk off. and so I started envying the goats, right? I said, how come these guys can just walk off when they want, and I have to sit there? And so that was school. And so whenever it rained, it was game over, right? You just picked up your stool and went home. So that was the education of. And so we did this, and I started learning the alphabet and learning some basic reading. And all along, I was working on a farm, and so you were bouncing around between the school and farm work. And so at some point, after about 2-3 years of this, I realized that I love to look at words on paper and figure out what they mean. And so that's where my love of reading begins. So there are no books in this village. I mean, this is not a place that's going to have a library. I mean, everyone is illiterate. So there are no books at home, there's no books anywhere, so reading material, I cannot find anything to satisfy this new appetite. And so I walk around the village square, people, use newspapers to wrap foods and stuff, and I just discard them. So I was walking around one day and I pick up one of these scraps of newspaper and I read something on it. I read the words on it, and what I end up reading is about the most exclusive secondary school in Ghana. This was it still is in the capital, Accra. And what I'm reading on this piece of paper is saying, this school educates children of the country's elite, the president, prime minister, ministers of state. Ghana used to be a British colony until 1957. So when the British ruled Ghana, they set up these institutions to educate children of the colonial governors and the diplomats, the ambassadors. And so I read about this school, and kids go from there to Oxford and Cambridge, and then they come back and they become the president of the country and university professors and the big people in Ghana. And so I have no idea. I was going hungry, but I didn't really know about poverty, and this insane idea enters my mind that, hey, I want to go to that school and someday become the president of Ghana or the prime minister or one of these big people, right? I have no idea what was wrong with me. I've never been diagnosed, but I think I had a mild form of insanity. So I pick up this paper, and I get this idea. I cannot talk to anyone because my parents, no one will have a clue what this thing is about. So I just start the process of getting myself admitted to this institution. So it was giving up my breakfast, 14 kids in the family. No mother is going to cook breakfast for 14 children at home in the morning before they go to school. So they give us a couple of pennies to buy. You got a scoop of rice from the street vendors, and you ate, and you went to school. So I decided I'm going to use, instead of buying that scoop of rice, I'm going to use my money to buy the newspaper itself so I can get something to read, because I need to improve my English and do a bunch of studies to stand in a chance of getting. So I give up breakfast. So now I start going to school every morning hungry, empty stomach. And I do this for about 2 or 3 years, and I gain admission to this school, right? I actually have to be interviewed, so I go to this place, and they interview me. They say, "Where are you from?" I mentioned the village, and the panel, there was about a panel of 8 people. No one knows about this place. "How did you get here?" I started talking about it. "What do you want to do with your life?" And I explained to them why I applied. "Do you want to be the prime minister of Ghana someday?" I say, "Yes." and they laughed, and they just admitted me. Right? This an insane kid. Just bring him here. So they admit me to the school. So I come back, and I tell my teachers, and they said, "What?" So they grab me and they take me home, and they start talking to my parents. I mean, "Do you know what your son did?" Of course, they have no clue. And so they start explaining to them, and I talk about having to go to an interview. So my class teacher at the time has to take me to the interview because my father couldn't do any, my mother's couldn't. So we go to the interview, and I see the place, and so we come back, and that's the first time I learned about the word poverty. All secondary schools in Ghana were boarding schools. And so if you lived in a village, you had to leave home to go live in a boarding house, and you had to pay very hefty tuition to do that. There was no chance. And so I had to give up this opportunity. And so I came back to the village, and it looked like game over. And I walk around for about a couple of weeks, and I said, all right, let me pick myself back up. So I started studying again for this entrance exam, and I pass and I go to another school because I was age limited to this for this exclusive school. So long story short, I get into secondary school. I go through that. I get admission to university. I hit another roadblock because university now even the tuition is even bigger, and so that's another roadblock. So all this time throughout my childhood, I'm working on my father's farm, and this farm is a jungle. I mean, it's denser than the Amazon. And so you're talking about poisonous snakes and all kinds of scorpions and dangerous animals. And so we're clearing brush on my father's farm, and you just come upon one of these poisonous snakes. I mean, a viper, a cobra, and these are deadly, right? So you come upon them, and either they run away, or you have to kill them, because if you leave them there, you might as well abandon the farm. Right? So there's no way we're going to let them go away. So we rip branches and go after them. Right? And, talk about life at risk. So, I mean, I shouldn't really be here. I should be dead a long time ago. So I get admission to university, and I come back home, and there's no chance I'm going to university. And then I realize, I hear about a scholarship program to the Soviet Union. This was 1985. The Cold War had been raging for a few decades, since then. And the Soviet Union had been all over Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, sort of building relationships, and Ghana happened to be one of the countries they had established a relationship with. So they had this program that took young people in about early 20s to the Soviet Union to study at universities. And the unstated idea was you went there, you were exposed to socialism, communism, and then you went back to your home country, and hopefully you sow the seeds of that ideology. So I get there, I fly into Moscow in August of 1985. The best thing about that timing was President Gorbachev had come into office about 5 months earlier. And so he's just beginning to talk about perestroika. And I get to Moscow, and I spent about a week in Moscow, and they shipped me off to Ukraine. So I get into the Soviet Union without one idea about the Russian language. I had grown up learning English. Russian was not, spoken anywhere in Africa. So I get there, and I hear that all instruction. I was going there to study electrical engineering. I get there, and I'm told that all instruction is going to be in Russian. I said, what? So electrical engineering is difficult enough. And to do that in Russian, this is now we're talking impossible here. But I'm here. There's no going back. And so the good thing the Soviets did was they put you in language school for a full year. And anyone who has seen the Russian language, it's Cyrillic alphabet. That was the first time I saw it, and it scared the hell out of me. So I see this, and okay, I'm put in language school in Kyiv. So I'm sent to Kyiv. So that's a map of Ukraine. Kyiv is the capital of Ukraine, so that's where I spent 1 year in language school. So it's intense, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, language. And when you came onto the streets, everyone spoke Russian because the system was closed. No Russian, no Soviet went anywhere. So because we were fully immersed, and this was a bunch of students coming from everywhere in the global south, basically. And so that's why I say I wasn't supposed to leave that village, but I ended up meeting everyone in the world. Everyone was there. So And we spoke a bunch of different languages. So when we got into class, I always liken it to being in the UN General Assembly without interpreters present. That's how it was. And so the professor would just stand in front of the class and just rattle on in Russian. You couldn't understand a word of it, but you sat there and you listened. And then you went to the stores and you had no clue what you were doing. So you were forced, to do this thing. So intensive. It was being in the military, and so surprisingly, within 3-4 months, I had picked up enough of the language to be dangerous. And so you go to the store, you can tell them what you want to buy, and now they can cheat you with the change if you give them some rubles. You know what to expect to come back. So so within about 6 months, I was good enough to start taking some science classes. So we did that. So after the year, we got shipped to the real universities where we're going to study. So I got shipped to Kharkiv, which is in the northern part there. Kharkiv is very, very close to the Russian border. It's probably just about 20 miles from the Russian border. So I spent a year in Kharkiv, and then I got sent out. I was transferred to Donetsk, which is a Donbass region that you hear about. And so as this war is raging on, that's the epicenter of the war, Donbass. Kharkiv is actually being pounded quite heavily nowadays. And so Ukraine is actually my sort of country in the old Soviet Union. And so what is going on there now is very, very personal for me. I write a lot about it. It's been on a bit of a crusade on that, on the war. And so I did that. I graduated in 1991. And I got there 1985, and 1991, that's when the Soviet Union collapses. So I'm there for the whole perestroika thing. And during that period, I get a chance to, travel back and forth between, the Soviet bloc, Poland, the whole of Eastern Europe, and then Western Europe. So we spend summer vacations in England, France. You can go anywhere. As a foreign student, I was allowed to go back and forth. So I call myself one of the few people in the world, who had a first-hand knowledge of life as it was on both sides of the Iron Curtain. It was quite an experience, and I'm really blessed for it. So I graduated in 1991 from the Soviet Union, and a couple of things happened. And the plan was to go back to Ghana after graduation, but a couple of things happened, and I ended up coming to America. And it was supposed to be for a temporary period. So I arrived here in 1992, April 1992, and my first stop was Buffalo, New York. Of course, I had no, go Bills. Go Bills. Yeah, I didn't know anyone in, a typical immigrant story. I just picked up a suitcase and flew into New York, and the only person I knew was a medical student in Buffalo, New York. He was studying at the SUNY campus in Buffalo, and so I begged him to give me a place to hang out for maybe a week or two whilst I figured stuff out. And so I get to Buffalo, and he wakes up in the morning, he goes to school, and then I'm in the apartment just watching television. And so watching television, I realized quickly that America, this new country that I've come to, is very, very different from every place else that I've been. So Africa is sort of a developing world, and so we have challenges with our politics. The Soviet Union was top down. The whole Soviet bloc was top down, so nobody spoke about any opinion. Western Europe, I had spent a lot of time in Western Europe. And these were open societies in Western Europe, and so democracy was full blown. But even that was different. When I got to America, I realized that the average guy on the street had an opinion, and they were willing to express it. And Americans, govern themselves, basically. I mean, they take charge of problems, they discuss them, and then they get a hold of them, and they try to solve them. And so that was very appealing, to me. As someone who has lived in a top-down system for 6 years, and so it was a very, very stark contrast. And so that's what became the attraction for me. And then I said, hey, I want to live here a little longer and experience this, life a little more. And the more I looked at it, the more I liked it. And so, within a few years, I went all in. I became an American citizen and naturalized, and never looked back. So in Buffalo, I was looking for something to do. And so my friend brought home the Buffalo News one Sunday, and I was looking through it, and I saw an ad in the Buffalo. So the wave of Soviet immigrants coming to this country was a big wave at the time. The Union had just dissolved, and so with the influx of Soviets, most of whom did not speak enough English, and so a couple of schools in Buffalo had decided that they were going to offer Russian to both Americans and these new immigrants. So it was sort of a dual program. So they would teach the immigrants English and then a blend of English-Russian. So so they were looking for someone that could teach Russian. And I said, that's me. Because in addition to my engineering degree, I had taken courses and had become certified to teach Russian as a foreign language. And so I'm a certified teacher. So I said, hey, this job is made for me. So this is Sunday newspaper. So I couldn't sleep that night. I got my passport ready. I got my teaching certificate ready. And I took the ad. And early Monday morning, I took the bus to the Board of Education office. And I walked in there, and I told the lady at the counter that I'm here to apply for the Russian teaching position. And she looked very annoyed. She looked quite annoyed. She said, some random black guy walking in Buffalo claims he knows Russian, and he's going to teach it. You're crazy. So I made the right decision, to carry my passport. And the diploma I was holding actually had my picture in it, had my passport picture stamped in it, and my passport. And so there was no way anyone could dispute that I wasn't the one, that the certificate belonged to. So after I convinced this lady that I was actually, capable, now she calls everyone in the office. Come and see this guy. Now I'm like, some alien just descended from some place. And so they give me the job on the spot. And so I become a Russian teacher, and they send me to these schools, to teach these kids. And then the board finds out that I'm an engineer, and so I can teach math. And so they asked me to teach math. So now I'm a math and Russian teacher. So I go into the classrooms, and this was 1990s Buffalo. And as anyone here knows, these old steel towns, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Reading, Pennsylvania, which is close to where we live, are these post-industrial sort of down on the knees type. So that's what Buffalo was in those days. And so there was a lot of poverty in the city. And so when I went into the schools, these typical inner city public schools, and we know all about the problems, disciplinary. So it was a rude awakening. I had gone through all this trouble to get education. So when I got that job, I was really excited to go into those classrooms and share the gift, that I've been given with these kids. And then I walk into this classroom, and there was no one there, I wouldn't say no one, but about 90% of the kids there came not ready to learn. They came from homes that were, either poverty-ridden or so broken that, the kids had no concept of, what education meant. And so I get into the classrooms, and And I spend probably 80% of my time trying to, control the classroom because there's chaos, right? And I, so that starts sparking questions in my mind, right? It's what is this? Right? So that is the beginning of my education in America. So I did that job for 2 years, and I left it to go to graduate school in Indiana, and worked in industry for a few years before I went to Tuck, where I met Mike. And we left Tuck, and we took jobs in different cities, and but we've stayed in touch, through reunions and things like that. But that classroom experience had stayed with me all that time, and so it became the basis of some of my writings, and ultimately I decided to explore those questions in the form of a book. I realized that was the only way I could effectively sort of examine the questions and try to share my thoughts on them. So that became the book that I'm speaking about today. So this whole journey has become, after going through a lot of those questions, it became a window into American society and all the problems we talk about here, racism, poverty, you name it. So those are the types of questions I was grappling with, and ultimately I decided to share some lessons. And so this is sort of a roadmap that I developed with a series of sort of thoughts. The goal was to share these sort of thoughts with disadvantaged children who grew up in the types of environment that I grew up in, and just the idea to show them what's possible. Sort of a roadmap to sort of plant some seeds and get kids to think about some of these ideas and how you go about life. I learned these things by accident, if I describe. I had no clue what I was doing, but I kept going and hit a lot of bumps and never said I'm not going. I just found a way to keep going, and so doing that over and over and over again, I learned some things, and so that's so I think I've shared enough of the story. So I think I can stop here and then open it up to some questions.
Amazing story. Really appreciated it. But where'd you meet your wife?
Oh, that's another book. Yeah, there's that's a great story. So we met in Ghana. Near the village that I showed. There were some German missionary Catholic sisters, German sisters that had set up a hospital near this village. There was, this village is totally decrepit, but about a couple of miles from that village was next to a town called Aquatia, which is a big diamond mining area. It has, diamond deposits. So a British company, DBS, and one company that's affiliated with. So they had set up a mining company there, and this place looked like Europe because it was, British and foreign people living there, and so they had walled off this place and created what looked like Western Europe. And so next to that, these German sisters came and built this hospital, sort of to serve that population to some extent, and some of the local, poorer areas. So Patricia happened to be a nursing student at the hospital. She had just started nursing training at the hospital, and we had a mutual friend, and I was going to her house one evening, and I just happened to chance upon her, and that's how we met. And later on, I asked her, why did you pick this village boy from this dusty village as your boyfriend or whatever it is, and so that's how we met.
Patrick, despite the fact that your village was illiterate, there was a teacher there.
Yes.
How did that teacher get there, and was it unusual for a village such as yours to have a teacher present?
That's an excellent question. So what happened was this primary school that I was talking about, this tree that I started school under was next to a building, which I can't call it a building. It was like a structure with a roof over it. Everything else was empty, and there was nothing in this place. And so we got about 4 or 5 rooms that were the real classrooms that people who passed passed the under the tree test, and you got to sit in a room with a roof over your head. So that was there was a public education system in the country. And even villages had, schools. These were all government-owned institutions, and so every village had something. And so they would send teachers there. I mean, they probably were not as qualified as the ones that taught in the cities and stuff like that. But they taught in the villages, and so that's how we got, some teachers there. I mean, to teach us, but the patronage of the school wasn't great because a lot of the kids were needed on farms, and so these teachers were there doing teaching jobs, and so the parents who let their kids stay in school for at least had access to a teacher that would teach them. So that's how we got teachers in this place. Yes. We go ahead.
Was your secondary school a Jesuit school?
No.
Accra or Abuja?
It was in Accra. Actually,
Accra?
Accra, which is
a Jesuit school?
No. These were secular institutions. They were mostly secular. They were totally public, and so it was run by the government. So, a few of the secondary schools were actually religious, had religious affiliation. So you had Catholic secondary schools, and you had some Presbyterian secondary schools, but the ones I attended were secular. Yes.
How were you able to pay for the secondary school? You sort of missed
Oh.
where the money came from.
Yeah, big miss. Yeah. So thank you for the question. Scholarship. Yeah. The second try. It's a long story, but I can quickly give you a sense of it. There was no chance I was going to go on. From middle school, and so after that exclusive school experience, I knew it was over. But I took the test again, the entrance examination. I took that again, and the following year, I got admitted to what we call in this country second tier. Right? So it was a second tier secondary school. So I get admitted, and I had actually scored higher on that second exam than I did the one I used to apply to this exclusive school. So when the school received a test score, I think it was one of the highest in the school's history, and so people were like blown away. Who is this person? and they saw Bordeaux, and they had no idea where this town was and where this village was, and so my sister, talking about teachers, one of my sisters branched out into teaching, and so she was a teacher in the town where the secondary school was located, and she just happened to be friends with a couple of the lecturers in this school. My sister actually had no idea that I had applied to that school because there were no conversations about education at home, right? And so my sister was out there in this town teaching, and she has a couple of friends who teach at the secondary school, and they're just friends. I mean, they know nothing. And so these friends, two teachers from the secondary school, stop over at my sister's apartment in the town one day on a visit to town. And they just start talking about, they knew my sister's last name. And then they said, some kid who has the same last name as you applied to our school, and he has one of the highest, scores ever in this school. And we're wondering, who this person is. Do you happen to know, by chance, are you related to this person? And they, first, she had no idea what they were talking about. So she asked them a bunch of questions, and it so happens that it's her brother. And so it was this big coincidence. And so these two teachers, they get on a bus the next day. My sister tells them what had happened the prior year, right? That there is no chance. You're excited about his scores, but there is no chance he's coming. So they get on a bus. They cut off the conversation, and they got on a bus. They go to the campus. They talk to the headmaster about what they found out, and the headmaster dispatches them the next day. To the village. So I'm walking around, the village one afternoon, and my mother sent somebody over, and he said, "Hey, come home. Your mother wants you home. Some people have come wanting to talk to you." And I said, "Are you crazy?" Said, well, who wants to talk to me? Who knows me? So I come home, and there are these two, well-dressed, gentlemen sitting in this decrepit, house, and then they introduce themselves, and they tell me why they're there. And so they tell me, we know about a scholarship program that can take you to the school, and so they actually brought the forms and had me fill it on the spot, and so that's how I get a scholarship to go to So it's
is your village the same today as it was when you were young?
Good question. Very different. Now it looks more of a town. It's actually, I won't call it a city, but it has more of a big town feel to it, because people have become, over time, over the decades, people have gotten education and have traveled, and so have a bit more money than they used to, and so people have built nice houses, and so life is very, very different. A lot different from what it was.
So I just want to ask you, so when you were in Ukraine,
Yes.
and you said people spoke Russian, which is now obviously what Putin says that was Russian. Did anybody speak Ukraine? Did you see any of the divisions that we see now? I was curious.
That's an excellent question. So Mike and I were talking in the car this afternoon about the Soviet Union had 15 republics, and Russia was sort of the dominant one, and Russia is the one that formed the Union, and it annexed, basically. That's what it's trying to do in Ukraine now. So it annexed all these other republics, Ukraine, all the stands, Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan, and then the Baltics, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and then so they sort of forced all these republics, which used to be states, into the Union, post-Second World War, when the world was being carved up. So that's how the Soviet Union came about. And so, to your question, they basically implemented Russian as the official language of this place and forced everyone to learn and speak it. So everyone, Ukrainians had their language, but the young ones that I studied with, I don't think they knew Ukrainian. The older people, the older generation spoke Ukrainian. So you met the older ladies and old men in the stores and in places, and you could hear them speak Ukrainian. But everyone else, everywhere else you went in the Union, everyone spoke Russian. And there was a lot of animosity because people were not voluntary members of the Soviet Union. So they felt the Russian domination. So Ukrainians, you're walking on the streets of Kyiv and Kharkiv, you hear Ukrainian gripes about, Russian domineering, attitudes and stuff. Right? So there was a lot of griping and unhappiness and so on. So what Putin is claiming now, that Ukrainians and Russians, he says Ukraine is actually not a country. That's what he says. So he, in his mind, Ukraine has always been a part of Russia, and so everyone else can go away. The Baltics can stay where they are. Everyone else can be an independent state, but there is no way he's going to let Ukraine go. But I was there. I mean, I listened to Ukrainians on the streets, complaining about how Russians, were treating them and things like that. And so he's making up his own history. That's how I always put it. He's making up his own history, and trying to use force to incorporate Ukraine into. So it is one of my battles nowadays. To counter his misinformation or whatever he he wants to call it. That was a question.
Going back in time, your parents would have been born under the British colonial.
Yes.
Presumably some of your siblings
Yes.
were all.
Yes.
How does that relate to, if at all, to the extreme poverty, the illiteracy of your parents? Were there no opportunities for them to get educated? I mean, just sort of that historical,
Yeah.
political,
Yeah.
knowing that poverty exists
Yes.
everywhere,
Yes.
but within your own personal sort of family framework.
Yes, and that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So you are right. My parents were born well before Ghana became independent. My father, talking about nobody knowing their age. I mean, there were no birthday celebrations in my house when I was growing up because no one had any concept of how, birthday. So when I forget my birthdays nowadays. I mean, someone recorded it. I mean, because I'm number 12. I mean, when I was born, there were people there to record so my birthday is known. But it's sort of a foreign concept because I do not know my mother's birthday. I do not know my father's birthday. I vaguely know the year my father was born in. That's all we know. So we heard that he was born in 1910, and so that was about 5 decades before independence. So when during the colonial period, the colonialists just came in to basically take resources, right? So they were not there for education or whatever. So they were, in the places where there were natural resources that was beneficial to them. So education wasn't, a part of the calculation. So that is why the population was, illiterate. It was probably about 90% of the population was probably illiterate, and it was a country. I mean, the history of Africa is very complicated. I mean, it's a bunch of tribes. I mean, from everywhere that have been, clubbed together and formed these countries, even before the colonialists arrived. And so you had a lot of flux in this continent. And so on top of that, you have people that have, swooped in from France and Belgium and, United Kingdom, interested in natural resources. So education, was, so that illiteracy was what was prevalent. And so that's why my parents and the older people in my family were not literate. And, but then after independence, gradually, times have changed and people have become more and more educated. So,
Obviously, you defied so many odds to get to where, all the places you went. But I'm just wondering, in that village, obviously there were other children, your siblings. Do you feel that you were born with something that was just like in you that wanted more? Because, it could have been anyone, and it's really, you must have had something there to.
Yeah. So, that's a great, excellent question. So, and thank you for that question, because I probably wouldn't touch on it otherwise. The difference in my case was the parents I had. So my father, this illiterate guy, who had 14 children and, didn't really know much about the world. The one thing he knew was responsibility. So, and this was an environment where, nothing much was expected of anyone, not of the kids and not of the adults. And so people, parents, men, women had children, and they just didn't really, care much. Whatever you did was fine with them. And so, well, my father was about personal responsibility. And so he wanted to make sure that any child he had brought into the world was going to be taken care of one way or another. And so he woke up. I never saw him much, actually, because he would wake up about 3 a.m., sometimes before that, and he would go off into the farm. And my mother would cook some breakfast and send one of my brothers or sisters to carry it to him on the farm. And so he would work probably like 14, 15 hours each day. He would come home at night dead tired. And so he did that. And then at one point he realized that the farmland in this place wasn't fertile enough. And so he left the family in this village and moved to another place. I mean, that's where the snakes were. So he was living in this place by himself. The first time I went there, I was maybe about 9, 10. And you're walking, you couldn't reach this place with in a vehicle. So you took a bus to some place. And then you walked, to get to his farm, you walked about 6 or 7 miles, through dense jungle. And so we get there, I'm about 9, 10, we get there, and I said, why does a human being, live here? And he made the decision to go and live there so he can get enough land to farm, to grow enough crops, to feed his family. He just didn't want to abandon, anything. And so that is the picture I saw as a kid. So I saw someone who took charge of his life and did what he had to do to survive. And so as a child, nobody's teaching you that, but you're seeing it, right? So I'm watching that, and so I wouldn't say it was a conscious thing, but I saw that and I said, that is how you live life. And so when my, friends, aged 9-year-olds were, out doing their thing, I was doing something. I had created a map. This map wasn't in existence, but it was in my head somewhere. So I created it, and I do have a bit of chutzpah, audacity, yeah. I do have a bit of that in me. So to answer your question, I do have a bit of that. I mean, that's insanity I was talking about. So you can name it whatever you want. I mean, I did have something.
Patrick, have you maintained close ties with your siblings, your 13 brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And do you go back to Ghana often?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yeah. With I used to go back to Ghana almost every year, but in the last decade or so, it's been infrequent. But with technology now, phones, FaceTime, and all that, so we keep in touch. Yeah, we keep in touch.
Has
very
your
close.
success inspired any unusual successes of your siblings that was unusual
Yes.
because of what you did?
Yes.
Mhm.
It has inspired. I have countless nephews and nieces. I mean, as you can tell. I mean, I cannot tell you how many, and many of them I don't know, but because they were born in places that I have not been. But this story has inspired a lot of them, and so a lot of them have gone on to do things that they might not, have done otherwise. Yes. So thank you. That's a question.
You say your father was born in 1910?
Yes. Well, he passed away. He passed away over 30 years ago, right when I was about to graduate from the Soviet Union. So.
How old is your oldest sibling?
82. Yes. Yeah. So.
Patrick, I wanted to say one thing I didn't realize we had in common. I'm one of 14 siblings.
Oh. So I have
Yeah. I'm lucky number 7, not 12.
Yeah. So I have a sister. Thank you. Yeah.
This isn't a question. It's just I just wanted to say thank you very much.
So that's.
So did your parents, just speaking of that, did your parents live long enough to see your success?
Yeah. So actually, that's the reason I came to America. As I'm saying, my father died in a car accident 2 weeks before I was about to graduate from the Soviet Union. So that was a ton of bricks that hit me, and I realized I went back to Ghana, and part of the story. It's actually in the book. I was in the Soviet Union at the time. I was looking for jobs. I was close to graduation in Ghana, so I started looking for jobs. So I was making some trips back and forth, interviewing and stuff like that. So the whole idea was to pack up from the Soviet Union and go to Ghana. And so I had been in Ghana about March of that year, 1991. And I had talked to him. I had spent time with him. He was 81 years at the time, and he was still working on the farm. And so my idea was, I'm coming back as an engineer. I'm going to work, and then I'll retire him from the farm, and then he will live his, the rest of his life, and we'll get a comfortable place for him. And so I talked to him in March, and I fly back to Moscow, and I had another trip planned before I would come back and defend my thesis and wrap up and come home. And so the next visit, which was I think late April or early May, I fly into Accra, Moscow to Accra. I get into Accra, and I take a taxi to my brother's house. That's where I spent a couple of nights before going to the village. So I go to my brother's house, and he's not there. The place is locked. And I see a couple of kids walking, playing in the, and I say, where's my brother? And he said he went to a funeral. One of the children, he went to a funeral. And I said, what funeral? And the kid, I think a young girl, probably about 8, he says his father died, and he went to. I said, what? This kid. He must have something wrong. So I threw my bags into my brother's house. He had left the key behind. I threw my bags in there, and I hop onto the bus station, I get a bus and off to the village. It was nighttime. So I get to the village and yeah, my father is dead. So, and I arrived on Monday. I arrived in Accra on Monday. He had been buried Saturday, 48 hours earlier. My brother tried to send me a letter in the mail. That time it was letters in the mail, and it didn't get to me. And so I was on the plane from Moscow to Accra, not knowing. So when I got that news, I was like, yeah. So I'm standing here today talking and laughing. Yeah, there was some crazy days there. So I was in a deep depression or whatever you want to call it. And so I said, yeah, I cannot stay in Ghana for the next however many months or whatever. So I need to go to some place and just, see what I can do to myself. And so that's what brought me to America. And yeah. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been a great honor. Yeah, thank you.